Hello everybody, my name is Craig Bennett, and today I'm going to get into a Microsoft Flight Simulator video. In this tutorial, we're going to get into how to make a flight plan, how to spawn your airplane anywhere in the world, and also how to manually add a flight plan to your plane. And that last one you might want to take a look at a little bit more. I'll have timestamps down below, but that one will actually show you some tricks that you simply cannot do in the world map, and it will actually help a lot of people out at the end of the day. So anyways, let's jump on in, and first things first is we go into the world map, and let's just say, for example, I want to spawn here for whatever reason. Now if I want to do that, all I need is to go in somewhere like Google Maps or whatever, and all I need is to actually launch this. So just go to what is here, do that, Control C, and then Control V into search, and that gets me the actual location. It's actually very important because I see here the map kind of sucks in the world map, and even if you do the satellite version, it's so low resolution that it doesn't really help at all. So with that in mind, this is basically the best way to find where something is. And keep in mind that if you want to go to a random spot, you can click on it, but in your case you just set that as your departure, jump in, and you spawn there in the world. Keep in mind how this works is you will be whatever amount of feet in the air. In this case it'd be 1600 feet in the air. You're already traveling. It's paused, but you're ready to go. Everything's going, engine's going. All you have to do is make sure you don't crash. So it's a good way to, if you want to go to a very particular part, like I said, for example, check out your house, you can spawn right at it. So as far as that, let's go ahead and check out how to go ahead and go and find airports and how to do whatever. Now if you have this particular bug and where you are not seeing any airports, go ahead and hit the open filters default, and that will allow you to see all the airports. Notice that there's certain things, like say for example airspaces and stuff like that, that you won't be able to see unless if you go down there and check it out. But as it is, you basically have the ability of quickly finding all the airports. Now how this works is if we turn the globe a little bit so we can see the white dots a little bit more, each white dot is an airport. And how this works is the bigger ones are the actual ones that are international and stuff like that. The ones that are done a little bit more detailed but are international and whatnot. And if you zoom in, like say for example right here, if I zoom in, and you'll notice that some are showing more than others, where it wasn't showing out here. For example, I think it was RDU or whatever, somewhere over here, it's showing where it wasn't before. What the fact of the matter is these are something worthwhile to note. All these tend to be on this level is managed airports. What I mean by this is, and a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of airports across the world, in the real world, there is no radio operator ever. It's just not. It's the airport. You got the runway. You might have some buildings, but you got the runway, and that's pretty much about it. Whereas managed airports, at least in my opinion, with managed airports, you tend to have some type of radio operator. Now, some airports, like one of my local ones, the radio operator is only available between sometime in the morning to I think about 5 at night, and after that you're pretty much on your own. But in the game, from what I've seen so far, it's either completely managed or not. There's a radio operator all the time, or it's just for the pilots. They have to figure out and use their best judgment at things. So that's something to note, is you might definitely have to watch out with situations like that. Now, let's say that you want to check out, let's say for example, I want to check out this particular airport. I can zoom in and I can see all the parking spaces and whatnot. It's very important notes, because if you set your arrival to the runway itself, like if you set your like in the air, you're already flying, engine's good, good to go, just don't crash. If you set your thing on the runway, well, what happens is basically you are on the runway, your engine's good, everything's good, but you just need to release the parking brake and take off. That's it. Now, as far as if you start with the parking space or gate, depending on your AI as far as your settings on it, assuming that you have it as the hardest setting, so the most realistic, if you're at a parking area, you're going to have to turn on the plane and go through the checklist and all that, and do the whole 9 yards. And some people might like that, some people might not. So it is good to know that you can start from the runway itself to avoid the whole 9 yards there. Or if you want to play around with that, make it as realistic as possible, you turn on your plane, make sure all your fluids are good and whatnot, then you can start at the parking space and go from there. So let's say, for example, you have a airport in mind. So all you have to do is type in the thing. So like, for example, I want to start at this particular airport, and I could set it as a departure. And then if I want to set, if I did something recently, I can set that as my arrival or whatever. But it is important to note, like with that, I can zoom in to detail, and what that's going to do is I can actually set this as my departure, so I'll start at that and have to go through the whole 9 yards. Now, let's say, for example, for whatever reason, I want to go and just fly over this area. What I can do, assuming that I got my other done right, keep in mind that if you got your routes done, you can actually see the blue line, but I can't add it, and it adds it in some midway point. So it starts from here, it goes out here, and goes up, and go from there. And what this does is you can actually add some interesting waypoints. So let's just say, for example, I want to do, I don't know, let's do something in the United States. Let's say this for the arrival. I can do a direct, direct by GPS, and keep in mind this is a VFR, or I can do a VOR, which is all visual, or supposed to be all visual. So what happens is it just bounces from airport to airport to airport, and this gives you a interesting possibility, because let's say, for example, that you don't have enough fuel to make it all the way down to wherever it needs to be, so, but you can make a pit stop in between and whatnot. Unfortunately, in this game, you don't have to worry about fuel prices. Some people might like that. Some people, like myself, don't. But with that in mind, you can just stop at pretty much any airport and just pick up some fuel and run with it. And this allows you to pick a random airport and go with it. You can, unfortunately with this, you can't look up details at the given airports on here. If the airport has fuel, has this, has that, you're going to have to use third-party sites. And that is something to note, but assuming that you're cool with things, you can just run with it. And if you want to add certain things, you can add waypoints. So say, for example, like there, I can say, let's remove that, and let's say I really don't like that airport. Let's remove that, and also let's remove that one and that one. So I can do some things like that if I really wanted to. Now if I wanted to do something like IFR, you're using instruments and whatnot, and that's fine. If I want to use something like high altitude IFR, I can also use something like that. And keep in mind that this, in the real world, for those of you who are not familiar with flying planes, You if you get a private pilot's license, you first start with VFR, which is visual flight rules. And what this just basically means is you're going to you can't fly through clouds, you can't fly through heavy weather, and all your stuff has to really be based on visuals. GPS, autopilot, all that stuff is good for an aid, but you have to be able to see stuff. So VOR to VOR is best on that case. However, if you're IFR, you can fly through pretty much anything that the plane's okay with, and this takes an entire new type of certification, and it's much harder to get. So if you want to simulate something like a VOR to VOR, because that's more realistic, if you don't have a private pilot's license and you want one, that's what you're going to be dealing with for a very long time until you get a IFR, the instrument rating. And you might want to take a little bit more look into that if you want to go about that route because of that. Oh, and real quick, a thing before I forget to do it is you can go into the Navlog and set your altitude, cruise altitude. I highly recommend that you actually take a look at this. And the thing to note with this, I'm going to tell you right now that I don't know how good this is. So say, for example, if I want to have it fly all the way down to, to and from around there. The thing is if we take a look at the Navlog, is the cruise altitude, is this good or bad? There's nothing in here telling me that will you save gas by going this height versus a higher or lower height. Will you save time and stuff like that? This is actually a very important point to make, because if you get into some third-party flight planners, like say for example, if you have AOPA membership, paid membership, you can use their flight planner. There might be something like this that's more or less, it's good for, figuring out basic things, but not that. But if you got a membership with like AOPA, paid membership, and use their flight planners, you can, or in some other places like iFlight and whatever, the thing is it will literally say, oh, by going this 1,000 feet versus the 1,000 feet you're going at, it will save you 30 minutes on your trip, or it will save you gas, or save you both, that type of situation. So you can take a look at it, and you can fine tune it to a high degree and go from there. Keep in mind that you can't import any flight logs or flight data like that to and from, but it is good to know, because you can take a look, especially with live weather and all the other stuff with that, and you can see, okay, if I fly at this altitude to make this my cruising altitude, then we can go from there, and otherwise, it's whatever. So that's also something to note. Now, one thing I will tell you right now is you currently, and I'll get a little bit more into this in a few seconds, you currently cannot set your altitude in your GPS at this time. The VMV does not work as far as I can tell, and there's a ton of features in the GPS that simply do not work. So just note that if you want to change your cruise altitude, I don't know of a way to do it if you already started a thing and you're midway, other than just Xing out of this, changing your cruise altitude, jumping back in, and just teleport yourself to whatever part. It sucks, but that's literally the only way I know how to do it, and that's just what it is. So just note that. Now, as far as this goes, I am just going to be using this airport right here. Reason why is we have a military base right there, and I will show you a trick to avoid the military base area altogether, and just basically land right there and not have any real problem. Notice that in the game, flying over military bases and stuff like that, there is no real issue with that. You're not going to have a fighter jet that flies up next to you to figure out what you're doing. You're not going to have anything weird like that. But if you want to make it as realistic as possible, I can show you how to do it in a split second. So as far as manually dealing with the flight plan and stuff like that, if you have a plane like this, you're flying a plane like this, then you can actually manually edit the flight plan or add things to it. Note it won't actually do anything with the navlog. Kind of sucks. Like, say for example, if I wanted to go in here, and by the way, if you jump in without a flight plan, go into the NRST, and that's the nearest airport. The first one's going to be the one that you're at. Remember the code, and then go to the flight plan, and if you click this on the very end, this has two scrolls. The first one goes like that. The other one actually changes the code. So if you change the code to that, then you'll realize what airport you're at. But let's say, for example, with this, that I want to add something in the middle of these two, some waypoint. What I could do is just go in and let's type in something like K whatever. Yeah, there you go. Fine. Let's go with that. So I can do something like that and run with it, and you'll even see it reflect up there. But as far as here, it doesn't change anything. So all this kind of has to be done prior to. It's also important to do this in the altitude stuff prior to versus do it in here. I found that there's a lot of features within it, like the VMV and stuff like that, that's not working yet in the game. So that's important to note. But you can do some cool stuff. So say for example, like with this, and by the way, how do you remove things? Just do that and it readjusts and whatnot, all of that manually, as you saw there. So as far as this goes, let's go and go to this particular one right here, and let's have it zoom out a bit, and zoom out a little bit more. Or in fact, I could just use this up here on the top right. And if we go to the very end, you can see that it just kind of, stops right there. So what I can do to actually help that out quite a bit is I can go to flight plan and then go to procedures, go to approach, pick the runway. So like if I want to go to a different runway, I can do that, but that's fine. Activate that, and what it does is it now takes off, and instead of going directly there, it follows that path and makes it where you can actually go, just follow that, and you go directly to the runway itself. It's important to note though, if you're doing something weird, like say for example, if I want to go to RDU, so let's go back over here, and if I want to just delete everything, I can just do that here. So let's go ahead and re-add this real quick. What I can do is to set a approach there, or I can select a arrival, or arrival, and I can say to whatever runway. Let's load that, and if we take a look at this, instead of going directly to RDU, it does this weird thing where it takes me almost all the way up to Virginia. In fact, I think it takes me up to somewhere up in Virginia. And keep in mind that we're pretty much the southern part of North Carolina. So I think Virginia line is about right about here. So it takes me about midway in Virginia, and then it takes me down to here and eventually leads me to here. It honestly to me makes no sense. There might be an actual legitimate reason to it, but as far as I can see it, it's just going to be problematic. Let's modify it where let's go ahead and clear that. So we can kind of modify some of these things to make it a little bit more sense. But like right here, we can modify it to a high degree. And now this kind of makes sense. And in fact, it actually would help to do it up to a certain point. Because I think it wants you to do, unless that's the runway. That might be the runway. Yeah, I think it wants you to do a 90-degree turn, which doesn't make sense. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wants you to do a 90-degree turn to get to runway 32. But anyways, as far as that goes, you can see what happens here. Like you saw, it's worthwhile, and sometimes it can make things much worse. So that is something to note. Something to also note is at this time, I already reported this, but and the developers are interested to figure out what's causing this. But some airports, if you try to do approach to them, it crashes the game. So that's also something to note into itself. If it crashes your game once, I would not try it, at least in that same session, until they push out some type of update or something to figure out what the problem is. But anyways, as far as that goes, so with that one in mind, if you have any questions or feel like I left something out or mess up somewhere, feel free to leave that in the comment section. I'll take a look at that and see what I can do. But if you got any questions and whatnot, also leave that in the comment section, and I'll see what I can look into. And lastly, if you want me to fly over particular areas, then let me know, and I'll see if I can do that. So I plan to do aerial tours using this game. But as far as that goes, leave a like, subscribe, share. Make sure you hit that bell so you know when my next video comes out. And I hope to see you in the next video. Hope you have a great day.